Welcome to Bibliophiles Anonymous number 58. I'm Denise.
And I'm Jess.
And tonight we are talking about The Girl in the Steel Corset by Kady Cross. This is the first book in the Steampunk Chronicles. And we've been reading a lot of steampunk lately.
Yeah, I've kind of got hooked on steampunk.
You know, it's a lot of fun. It's, cool Victorian clothes and really weird, crazy technology that, shouldn't really work, but it does, and it's almost cooler than what we have now.
Yeah.
So, hey, what's not to like? So, yeah, we will be talking about that in just a minute. First off, we'll probably need to start, like we always do, and talk about anything else that we're reading right now.
Well, I just finished Iced by Karen Marie Moning, which goes along with her Fever series. It continues the story, but it shifts perspective from Michaela to Danny. And I love Danny. She's 14. She's one of the girls who lived in the Abbey that can see the Fae, and actually she can kill them. She has the Sword of Light. And this sort of picks up right where the Fever series leaves off, following her instead of Michaela. And it was really good, and it cracked me up several times.
Yeah, I saw you were posting several quotes here and there from it.
Yeah. I love the one, the one I posted where Rydan was asking her about the Ziploc bags. The reason his question is ended with a period, Danny makes a big deal about the fact that his voice, the inflection in his voice does not go up at the end when he asks a question.
Mm-hmm.
He makes them all into statements, and it drives her crazy. And then she decides that she's going to start doing it because she said it makes sense, because if you don't make it a question, it's more of a statement, and then people will answer automatically because they don't think they have a choice. It's some kind of psychological thing. Yeah, it was pretty funny. I was like, okay. But she says at one point close to the end, she says something about a holy Etruscan snoods. And Rydan actually asked a question, and it actually ended it with a question mark, and she told him he was going to have to be careful with his question. She actually got one out of him.
Well, that's an interesting phrase. I'm sure it would take anybody quite aback.
Yes. But Rydan, I mentioned these books back when I was reading them. Michaela finds this guy named Jericho Barons. Well, he's not human, and he's not Fae. Whatever Jericho Barons is, that's what Rydan is.
Oh, okay.
So Rydan is kind of Danny's Jericho, except without the whole, attraction thing, because she kind of hates Rydan. But it's so funny because you can tell Rydan is very possessive of her, but then you have Christian McKeltar. Was a druid, and now he's turning into an unseelie prince because he started eating unseelie flesh.
Oh, okay.
Well, he was on the verge of dying, so Michaela fed it to him to save his life, yada yada. He's pissed off about it, but he's replacing the unseelie prince that Danny killed. But he's in love with Danny. And it's pretty funny that they're all fighting over this 14-year-old girl. And she's just like, ew.
Well, yeah. I mean, 14, you're still kind of one step away from boys are icky, usually.
Yeah, well, Christian tells her he's going to do something, and he calls it an early wedding present. And she was like, wedding present? I'm not getting married. I don't know what you're talking about. It's so funny. I love Danny. She's awesome.
Sounds it.
And after I finished that, I was kind of at a loss as to what I was going to read next. I even appealed to you for help.
You did, and I gave you my advice in the matter.
Which I totally did not follow.
Well, hey.
I also did not read any of the things I listed in that status. I found Kevin Smith's book that he wrote, which is called Tough Shit. And it's about all the tough stuff that he went through growing up, and how he'll tell you, he said, I'm not talented, I'm lucky.
Uh-huh.
But talking about, losing his dad and all this stuff. And I love Kevin Smith. I love Jay and Silent Bob. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is probably one of my favorite movies ever.
Mm-hmm.
So And I listen to Jay and Silent Bob, the Jay and Silent Bob Get Old podcast, which is not PG, people. Nor is this book. But
I kind of guessed that, but
yeah, I love Kevin Smith, so I found that. And I started reading it because I kind of was in the mood for something a little different, more biographical humor type thing.
right.
Sort of what I was in the mood for. I wanted Corey Taylor's new book, but I couldn't find it. So that's what I'm reading. And when I finish that, I don't know, maybe I'll start the books by Amber Benson. Or maybe I'll finish the Steampunk Chronicles.
Well, I plan on finishing the Steampunk Chronicles. I've got book 2 ready to go. I didn't want to start it before we talked about book 1, just in case, although I think they're going to be pretty different.
Yeah.
I just got that feeling. So I've been focusing on the other series that I'm reading at the moment, which is the Maze Runner series by James Dashner. And the first book is The Maze Runner, and I finished that one earlier this week, I think. And it was... I have a couple of gripes with the book, mostly just because of the writing. The book itself, the story is really interesting. It's about, well, the main character, his name is Thomas, and he wakes up with no memory of who he is except for his name and how he came to be in this big metal box. And then he realizes that the metal box starts moving, and oh, it's an elevator, and he comes out into this big courtyard with these big walls surrounding him. Basically, he's been dropped into the middle of this huge maze. And there's other kids there too, all boys. And they have kind of created this society, sort of, in this big room. They call it the Glade. I mean, it's outside, it's open to the air, so it's not, calling it a room is a bit misleading, but at night, there's doors on all 4 walls of this big room, and they close because these creatures come out in the middle of the night, and they call them grievers. And basically, they look like these weird, big, mutant, blobbish creatures, but they're also kind of mechanical, and they have like spikes and like metal arms that come out, and all of them are slightly different. And you don't want to be attacked by one because bad things happen to you. And so part of what they do there is they have people who go out into the maze every day to try and figure out how to get out of it, but the maze changes every night. So it's all about these boys, and Thomas, as he's trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And none of them remember what life was like before they were put in the maze, and they don't know how to get out of it. Well, I mean, eventually they figure it out because otherwise it would be really boring after a while. But it was really interesting, and just the concept of it, basically, seeming like it's this group of human lab rats trying to go through the maze. That was interesting enough to keep me reading. I don't know if it wasn't an interesting premise, I don't know if I would have, because the writing started to drive me crazy after a while. Well, no, and maybe it's just because once you've taken too many writing classes, you start to notice things that you may not normally have noticed before. But one of the things that they always tell you to do is to show, not tell.
Right.
Where, instead of just saying, so-and-so is scared, you don't do that. Instead, you describe how they're scared, or how that's affecting them, or what's scaring them. You don't just tell people they're scared. You show them what is happening, what is affecting them. Like, are their palms sweaty, or do they suddenly get like a chill, or are they like their hands shaking, or something like that. But he does a lot of telling, and after a while it started to get on my nerves a little bit. Now, it got better towards the end of the book, maybe just because everything picked up and started moving really fast. And the second one, so far, there hasn't been as much of that, so I'm feeling better about it. So I'm probably a third of the way through the second book, which is called The Scorch Trials. And I'll probably go ahead and finish the series. It's a trilogy, And like I said, the whole premise and the way that this, I mean, it's obviously kind of a futuristic dystopian kind of a thing.
Hmm.
And I'm kind of curious to see where they're going with this. And one particular character has kind of disappeared, and I want to find out what happened to them because they're still kind of there, sort of. Um, and then they disappear again. So it's like, wait, where are they going? What's happening with them? Because something weird is happening with them, and somebody's trying to control them, and I want to know what's going on because it's just a little too strange. So I need to find out. So I'm gonna stick with it. And like I said, the second one is so far better than the first one as far as the writing goes. So, and that's
Yeah.
always good to see when you know, because I think this is a fairly new author, and he's got some other books out, but I think this may be his first series. I'm not sure, um, but it's getting better instead of some of them they start off really strong and then they just kind of slowly
Yeah.
get worse. But this one's getting better, so I'm looking forward to reading the rest of them, and then hopefully starting the second book in the Steampunk Chronicles, which I think is the girl in the Clockwork Collar.
Yes.
Something about a clockwork collar. I don't remember the exact title now. I think it's the girl in the clockwork collar.
I believe so.
Yeah.
See, okay, now we have to start talking about the Steel Corset because one of my big gripes about the book was I expected the corset to play a more important role than it did.
Well, it did seem that it should.
Yeah. I mean, that's the title of the book. You would expect it to be
Something?
uh, more central to the plot.
You mean other than just being mentioned like twice?
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
That being said, we should probably start at the beginning.
Let's start at the beginning.
Because at the beginning, you meet Finley, who is 16, and she's working as a maid. And this guy whose household she works in, Lord Felix, is rather a.
Jerkface.
Yes, we'll go with that.
That's the
And
PG way to say it.
yeah, that's what I was looking for, the PG version. Um,
I could come up with a much more colorful thing to describe him as, but
yeah,
we try and keep this somewhat family friendly.
scallywag. Anyway,
Well, that's a good
he
one too.
he basically has a reputation for attacking all of the ladies that work for him, and he attacks Finley, which turns out to be quite a mistake.
You don't want to do that with Finley
No, because
because she trounces him one side down the other.
she has these crazy powers. Like it basically you eventually find out what's going on, but it's like there's another person inside that takes over, and she's crazy strong, and yeah, she trounces him basically.
Quite well. In fact, she thinks at first that she's killed him.
Yeah. So she runs away.
As would I.
Yes, and she gets run over by a velocycle, which the best we can figure is basically a motorcycle.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like. Not exactly like a motorcycle, but very similar.
Yeah,
Powered by, steam, probably,
yeah.
I believe.
And it just so happens that the person piloting said velocycle is Griffin, and he's a duke.
I like Griffin.
I do too.
I
So
really
does
like.
Finley.
Well, yeah. I mean, really, what's not to like?
Yeah. But so he takes her back to his place and cleans her up, and he's all concerned and everything.
Well, and basically, he brings her into his house, and because at first, wasn't it the fact that she gets run over or hit with the velocycle, but she doesn't seem to be that injured.
Right.
And because at first he's worried that they really seriously hurt her, but she's kind of knocked out, but she's mostly fine, other than some mostly superficial injuries. And he's kind of like, well, that's unusual. So they want to find out more about that. Now he's traveling with his friend Sam, who is very much against the idea of him bringing anybody back, especially not someone who's, obviously got something going on. But they bring him back to Griffin's house, where we meet Emily.
I like Emily too.
Another one. Emily's awesome. And let's see, how even to describe Emily? She is a mechanic. I mean, she can, and she's, I mean, more than that. I mean, she's kind of an inventor. She builds all different kinds of machines to do. She has, and this comes in later in the book, but I just have to say, she has a robot cat.
Yes.
That is so adorably cool.
Yes, I want one.
Yes. And she also is kind of a doctor, and she's really, really smart and really good at a whole bunch of different things. And that's part of what makes her so valuable to Griffin and his little group of people. But, and there's a couple of other things going on with Emily too, but we'll get there. So she takes care of Finley, cleans her up, and they're trying to figure out basically why she isn't hurt. In the meantime, Finley is terrified that she's going to, once she wakes up, that they're going to find out what happens to her. They're going to find out what she did to Lord Felix. And so she isn't real keen on staying there at first.
Mm-mm. She isn't. She wants to run away again. And matter of fact, she does leave. She steals a velocycle.
Yeah. And goes, is that where she first goes to see Jack?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, I finished this several days ago, so I'm trying to remember all the details.
Yeah.
Because the thing about Lord Felix is he was a part of this group, sort of an underground group. It was one of those things that you didn't really talk about it, but kind of everybody knew about them. And they were called dandies after their leader, Jack Dandy. And they were all nobles of one kind or another, but they all kind of got involved in some kind of nefarious dealings. So Finley decided that she was going to go and see Jack Dandy.
Yeah, because that was such an intelligent move to make.
Now, okay, I have to say, though, I really like Jack Dandy. He's a cool character.
Yeah, he's hard. He's the villain that you hate to love.
See, I don't even think he's that much of a villain. I mean, he does some bad things, but especially as the story goes on, I mean, he cares about Finley, and I think he would do whatever she needed him to, because she basically she went to see him because of Lord Felix, and I can't remember what exactly it was, because she wasn't going to try and get him in trouble, although that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what the whole point was either, but then after she went to see him, she panicked and thought that, well, then Felix turns up dead.
Right.
And the police come and question Finley.
Which sends Sam right through the roof.
Oh, yeah, because Sam doesn't trust her anyway. Sam has been negative Nancy about the whole thing since the beginning.
He's been negative Nancy about a lot of things.
Yeah. Like the fact that he's alive.
Yeah. See, okay, that is one thing that really, really irritated me. Okay. When you get into the main plot, part of the main plot, is that there's this guy, this character, and nobody knows his name. They call him the Machinist. And he is responsible for a lot of robots, automatons, because this society, they have a lot of people, or a lot of jobs that are run by these mechanical creatures. And there's been several instances of these things going completely against their programming and attacking people and killing them. Because since they're machines, they're, freakishly strong. You can't easily turn them off. You can't really fight back against them. Well, Sam ends up getting attacked and
Yeah.
has since had sort of a, not really a phobia, but he doesn't like being around machines.
Well, you can't really blame
No,
him.
I don't blame him at all. And I'm really, really sorry that he got attacked the way he did. But the thing is that he nearly died.
Yes.
And so the only way to save him was, well, the only reason he's still alive at all is because Emily's a genius.
Yeah.
Let's just be flat out honest. But
Much.
he, in order to save him, she had to replace a lot of parts of him with mechanical parts. And so he has a mechanical arm. Just on the inside, it's still covered with skin. But she had to reconstruct like his bones out of metal because there wasn't anything left to basically put him back together. And so I know it's his arm and his part of his rib cage and even his heart.
Yeah. She replaced his heart, which he finds that you find that out when he finds that out.
Yeah. And
Because
it
he wasn't aware of that.
no, and it is pretty shocking. I mean, he knew about the other stuff because it's, it's really easy to notice when one side of your, one arm does not feel like temperature anymore because it's completely different and one's like slightly stronger. He's got a lot of he can tell that there was something wrong with his arm or something that was different, but he had no idea about the heart because his heart was damaged or he was stabbed through the heart, and so she built a mechanical heart that was able to pump the blood through his body, which that's what your heart's supposed to do. So she's, like I said, she's brilliant, and he is completely and totally pissed off at her for making these decisions, and it's just really.
Yeah, he's so terrified of machines, so he's mad at her for making him one, and it's like, dude, you're not a machine. You might be slightly a cyborg, but you're not a machine.
Yeah, you still have uh your own brain doing your thinking. It's not just because there are parts of you that are artificial now, it doesn't mean that you are less of a person. But he takes it as a personal affront and has a really hard time getting over it. But so yeah, the big bad guy, I guess, in this is the Machinist. And they're trying to figure out who he is, where he's going to strike next, and what they can do to get rid of him. Backing up just slightly, we need to talk about exactly who Griffin is. And we already said he was a duke, but he's also the son of scientists who
Yeah.
had made some pretty important discoveries.
Yeah, they don't really explain the Organites and the ore very well.
No, I mean, it's kind of, you're just supposed to kind of just take it at face value.
But basically his parents found this ore and these things called Organites, and Organites can apparently heal you.
Yeah, they can. It has something to do with their ability to replicate cells, sort
Yeah.
of. So, and they're really teeny tiny microscopic kind of things. And basically they've been using them if you have like a really bad wound. If you put these organites on it, then they can make it heal faster because they're basically creating new skin and new blood and new whatever. And you can have a pretty serious gash and it'll go away without even a scar, which is pretty nice actually, I must say.
And combined with somebody like Finley who heals crazy fast anyway, and then they realize that because they've all spent so much time with these Organites, that's what's given them all. They're all kind of superheroes.
Yeah, they all have like a kind of a superpower. Like Finley is very strong, and she never really understood why until she found out from when they're learning all about Griffin and his parents and what they've done. They find out that Finley's father had been working with Griffin's parents and kind of, he experimented on himself, but kind of on Finley too.
Well,
So
the thing was, he experimented on himself, but while he was doing these experiments is when he got her mother pregnant.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And so that's how Finley ended up being the way she was.
Right. Do we want to tell them exactly who her dad was? Or do we want to read and find that out themselves?
I mean I thought that was really interesting, and I don't think it's that big a spoiler because I really thought it was cool.
Yeah. Basically, you find out that, and this will make what's going on with Finley make more sense.
Oh yeah.
You find out that her dad was the person that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was based on.
Right. Which is why
the experiments he was doing caused him to split his personality like that.
Right. Which is why when Finley, she says she feels like she has like a darker side that takes over. Well, that's basically her Mr. Hyde that's taking over. And once they figure that out, Griffin is pretty certain that they can find a way to bring her two halves closer together.
Yeah.
So that when she has to go, all Mr. Hyde on somebody, it's within her control. Because right now it's not within her control, and that's what's so scary, is because she gets freakishly strong, and she's, not able to control it. So, that's not a good combination.
No, not usually.
So much. But, so yeah, that's her deal. And then Sam is also freakishly strong.
Yeah.
Griffin's gift is a little bit different.
Yeah, he can control the ether.
Yes. And can kind of travel sort of on like the spirit plane.
It's sort of like astral projection type thing.
Right.
And he can communicate with the dead.
So that's his deal. And then they also have an American friend named Jasper.
Yeah, Jasper Wren.
And I liked Jasper too. I thought he was kind of cool.
Yeah. And can I just say, before I finished the book, especially after they introduced Jasper,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting here thinking as I'm reading, man, this reminds me of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, at the end of the book, in the author's note, she said she was trying to write League of Extraordinary Gentlemen meets something, and I was like, makes Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, I think, and I was like, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I totally got the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love that movie. But yeah, like I said, I thought of that before I read the author's note saying that she wanted, that was her intentions, and I was like, hi, I'm good.
But, so yeah, that's Griffin's deal. The friend Jasper is, kind of has super speed.
Yeah.
And then there's Emily, and you don't really find out until later what Emily's full gift is. I mean, obviously she's incredibly brilliant and can pretty much build just about anything, including part of a person, apparently. But you also find out that she can kind of almost communicate with machines, and that's why she's so good at them.
Yeah. She says she can talk to them.
Well, and after what happened at the end of the book, I believe her.
Yeah. But yeah, and two, the bad guy, to me anyway, was kind of obvious.
Yeah, well, it was to me too. That was actually something that was a little bit of a disappointment, because as soon as certain people started shooting their mouth off,
Yeah.
I was, maybe not the first time it happened, but every time afterwards, I'm like, oh, I totally know what you're doing, and I know who that person probably is. And yeah.
Yeah, I kind of saw that one coming. Basically, Sam makes friends with someone, and that someone ends up being our bad guy.
Yeah. And of course, he's very nice and very cultured, and you, the type of person that you would never consider being, a totally evil person, except for the fact that this is a book and it was very obvious that was the totally evil person.
Yeah. I mean, the first time, I'm like you, maybe not the first time. The first time, it was just somebody that Sam noticed that he had a metal hand
Mm-hmm.
and that he didn't try to hide it and it didn't seem to bother him. So it was somebody Sam could talk to and sort of identify with.
Right.
But
I
after
mean,
a
it was
couple of,
just it was just a random meeting in a bar, basically.
except, it wasn't actually random from,
No, but that's what it looked like.
yeah. And, but after like the second or third time, I'm like, wait a minute. This is totally going to be our bad guy.
He's getting an awful lot of information, specific information, if you will. And, what do you think he might want that for?
Yeah.
But we later find out that the machinist has plans, and they don't know exactly what that entails, but they know that it has something to do with the Queen's Jubilee that's coming up, and that there's been a lot of things of Queen Victoria's that have gone missing, like a hairbrush and maybe a couple of other, I can't remember if it was a couple of other pieces of jewelry or it was more than just a hairbrush. But then she had what do you call them? A wax figure at Madame
Yeah.
Tussauds. And those are always so creepy. Oh,
I've never seen one in person.
they're
After
creepy.
reading this, I don't think I want to.
They're really, really creepy. I mean, because they're so lifelike and usually really, really close in appearance to the person that they're trying to go for. But yeah, they're really creepy. And so she had a figure at Madame Tussauds, and it was also stolen.
It turned back up,
Well, yeah.
which was weird.
Yeah.
I started worrying when the Queen Victoria wax figure went missing because I I just knew that the machinist was making a Victoria automaton.
Right.
And I will admit that I didn't right up until we reached the point where they actually found the machinist and the automaton. I was like, is he gonna slip this thing in as Victoria and us not know it?
Right. Well, it was hard
Or
to tell
are they gonna find him before he does that?
because the thing about this guy, and I mean, how far into the spoilers are we gonna go?
I don't know.
We probably should have decided that before we started talking. Well, it's okay. We'll give a warning in the show notes that we're going to talk about a lot more spoilers than we usually do. Um, but when you when you find out who the machinist is, you find out that he was also working with Griffin's parents, and so he knew about the Organites, and he stole some or he had some, and so that's also why he was the way he was, is because he was another one of these kind of superhero people, only a supervillain instead. And so he found a way to incorporate the Organites into the automatons that made them basically sentient.
Yeah, which is creepy in and of itself.
Right. And so yeah, that's why when they found the wax model of Victoria, they the each one has glass eyes that were, made to look just like the eyes of the person. Well, they were missing. And after looking really closely, they could tell that this wax figure had been measured very carefully because there were marks on the face that showed that calipers had been used
Yeah.
to get very specific measurements on what she looked like. And since, I mean, basically when you sit for a wax figure at Madame Tussauds, I mean, they're very, very careful with everything. And so, I mean, you've got pretty close to an exact double, or as close as you're gonna get. Except now the machinist is making one of his own that can move and think for itself. Kind of, well, he'll still have control over it, but it doesn't need to wait for commands. It can respond to other things. And so, yeah, you find out, well, let's back up just a little bit because here's the part that both of us just found irritating. And that's the steel corset.
Yeah.
Notice that we haven't mentioned it once, except for when we first mentioned it before. That's because it shows up all of 2 times in the whole novel. The first time, is that when she goes to the ball or the party?
Yes.
They end up going, well, she goes with Dandy, but it's this masquerade ball kind of a thing, and they're going to find more information to see if there's any more information about the machinist. But Emily created this corset made out of steel, and it sounds gorgeous. The way
Yes.
that it's been, I mean, it's made out of steel, so obviously it's very, very strong. But the way that it was done, it's strong, but it's also very thin. So it's kind of these overlapping scales, sort of, so that she can still move around just the way she normally would, and just the way it sounded, like the way that it was engraved, and it sounded beautiful. But you hear about her wearing it when they go to the masked ball, and then she wears it again when they go after the machinist, when they find out where his headquarters is.
Right, and that's the only 2 times it's mentioned.
That's it. And if that's going to be the title of the book, I want more.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be some kind of magical device that she couldn't take off or something.
Well, actually, I think the Clockwork Collar is going to end up being like that, so that's what it sounded like from the blurb.
I mean, that's sort of what I expected with the Steel Corset. I was like, this is going to be some kind of thing that's a magical or technological thing that she has to wear that she can't take off, that's going to play an important role in her characterization. No, not so much.
Well, no, because I was expecting it to, as soon as Griffin started talking about a way to try and balance the 2 halves of her personality, I kind of assumed that the corset was going to somehow be part of that maybe there was something in it, because there isn't, I mean, there's some fantasy in this. I mean, obviously what Griffin does with the ether is, I mean, I wouldn't even necessarily consider it fantasy, though. It's more just supernatural or paranormal stuff, because there's not, I mean, other than that, there's not really any kind of magic system so much, unless you count the Organites. And I mean, that's not even really magic, it's just they're really powerful, but it's treated more like scientific stuff than it is any kind of fantasy.
Yeah.
So I wasn't expecting the Steel Corset to be magical, but I expected it to be more than just basically body armor that she wears twice.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was expecting it to be some sort of thing that she couldn't take off, that has been on her since she was a child, and that was going to be, a big part of the plot.
Yeah.
No, it was mentioned twice. She wore it twice. Dear Kady Cross, you should probably rethink the title of this book.
I mean, it's a cool title, and it's a really cool item. It needed to be in there more.
Right.
Because it made it sound like it was going to be so significant, and then, because the whole time I'm sitting there and I'm reading and I'm reading and I'm waiting for it to make an appearance. It's it's almost like you expect it to be its own character practically, because it's in the title of the book. And then finally, when she's getting ready for the ball and she's got this gorgeous dress that like looks like peacock feathers and everything, and I really wish I could see a picture of that dress because it sounded amazing. But then all of a sudden, Emily brings in the corset, and it's made of steel, and it's all, intricate and special, and Finley's never seen anything like it. I'm like, yes, finally, here it is. And then it doesn't come back, and I'm like, well, okay. And I think part of me kind of assumed that she was wearing it more. She just didn't talk about it.
Right.
And maybe she was, but we don't know that for sure because it's never mentioned. So maybe the whole time after she gets it, she's wearing it underneath her clothes, obviously, so maybe it's somewhere in there, but I don't know. If I had something that cool and I was wearing it all the time, I'd talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it should have been a bigger, more important part of the plot than it was.
Right.
That's my biggest gripe with the book, is that there was not nearly enough steel corset for the book to be called The Girl in a Steel Corset.
Right. No, I agree. But other than that, I really liked this book.
I did too. It was really good. I mean, I had heard about it a while back. Like, when I heard about it was when it first came out, and there were none of I think there's 2 more books, and there's 3 novellas that go with it. And I have one of the novellas. I don't have the other 2. And it's The Strange Case of Finley Jane.
And that's kind of a prequel, right?
Yeah, I think it's the short story that leads up to The Girl in the Steel Corset. But, when I heard about this book was when The Girl in a Steel Corset was the only book in the series that had been released.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been out for a while, and I've been wanting to read it for a while, and I finally got my hands on it. And I was like, hey, we should do this one for the podcast.
And I agreed because I thought that it sounded very interesting.
So, yeah, I think both of us are going to finish this series.
Right. Yeah, and the thing is, too, is that, and this isn't really a complaint necessarily, but the cover art for this is absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
And, I mean, obviously it's a picture of Finley and her back is to the camera, quote unquote. And you can, like, part of the dress is open so you can see, like, the steel corset on her back. And then there's this just billowing, bright red dress. I don't remember her ever wearing a dress like that.
No, it's the wrong color.
But, okay, we'll go with it. It's a very striking cover, though. It's really pretty. But, yeah, there's, the second book is The Girl in the Clockwork Collar. And then there is book 3, The Girl with the Iron Touch. Which, just from the cover art of that one, I'm thinking it has something to do with Emily, because it's a redhead with really, really wild curly hair.
That would be my guess.
So, I haven't even looked at the blurb for that one yet. And then there is a 4th book coming out next year. Actually, May 20th of next year. And it's called The Girl with the Wind-Up Heart.
Huh.
So there you go. And then there's several novellas, too. There's, like you said, The Strange Case of Finley Jane, which is... I love how Goodreads does this, because if it's a novella or a short story or a prequel or what have you of a series, they call it number 0.5.
Yeah.
Because if it's in between, like, book 2 and book 3, they'll call it book 2.5 or 2.5. But if it's just, before the first book, then it's number half.
Well, I like that because it lets you know where in the chronology
Right.
the book goes.
But there's also 2 other novellas. There is number 2.5, The Dark Discovery of Jack Dandy. And then 3.5, which is The Wild Adventure of Jasper Wren.
I was going to say, I think one of them is about Jasper.
Yeah, 3.5. So, that's interesting. But anyway, so yeah, I'm definitely going to read the rest of the series pretty soon, actually. I'm probably going to go ahead and focus on getting through the Maze Runner stuff so I can finish that, and then I'll go back to these. Because I think there was a big enough break in the action between books 1 and 2 that I won't necessarily have to reread book 1
Right, because at the end of this book, they're kind of taking off to America.
Yeah. So, this one took place in London, and the next one's taking place in America. So, not that it's a completely different book, or a different story, but there's enough of a break.
Yeah.
And it won't take me that long to get through the Maze Runner stuff. So, but I'm looking forward to reading it because I'm curious to see what happens and because I like this. I've started to really really like this steampunk stuff, and it's funny because I never felt one way or the other about it before.
Yeah. Well, see, it was never something that I really got into, and then we did. What was the?
Oh,
We did
the Liesl
like
Schwartz books.
yes, we did those, and then I read the Linville books that I wrote reviews for and posted.
Mhm.
Those were steampunk, and now these, and I'm really sort of getting into the steampunk thing. It's really kind of cool.
Well, yeah, because for me. It wasn't that I didn't have interest in it. It was I didn't really know anything about it.
Right.
I mean, I kind of knew what it was, but it wasn't something that I ever focused on. But since we've done a couple of these for the podcast now, it's like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. So,
Yeah, I dig it.
but I think that that's going to wrap up our discussion on the
We
girl.
actually have an episode less than an hour.
Oh wow, we never do that. So that's pretty cool. Well, it's hard. We've only missed a week, but it feels like a lot longer.
Yeah.
So I'm like trying to remember how to talk about things and how to, because I mean, actually when we first started, it was like, okay, wait, what do we do first? Oh yeah, we talk about what we're currently reading. I mean, it took me a second. I was like, oh, it was only a week, people.
Yeah. You get out of the habit of doing things apparently.
Yeah, but we are now back, and we have no immediate plans to take any further time off. So, uh, that does not mean, however, that we know what we're talking about next week.
No.
We have not quite gotten organized yet, but we're working on that. We know within the next few weeks, at least within the next month, we are going to be talking about the Catching Fire movie.
As soon as we both get a chance to go see it.
Yes, because I'm going to insist on that because holy cow, does it look good!
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find somebody willing to go see it with me.
Because if it's anything like the first one, it's going to be just awesome. So,
Yeah, definitely.
so eventually, within the next few weeks or so, we will be talking about that. Uh, but in the meantime, we are still working on getting some topics. And if you would like to suggest any topics, we would really love to get some suggestions, some feedback, or what have you, book recommendations. That would be good too, because as of right now, we don't have any firm plans to review any other books right now. So,
I'm still leaning towards the Amber Benson books, but that would be more fun. I don't know. I think it might be fun because you haven't watched Buffy,
uh-huh,
and I have watched Buffy, so I know Amber Benson from that.
uh-huh.
So I think it might be interesting to go with this from a Buffy fan versus non-Buffy fan standpoint.
Okay. Well, that's a possibility. That might
And I
that
think
might be something we do.
they're right up their alley. The main character, she's Death's daughter, and she has to learn how to, basically be Death.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is another possibility. So, is it a series?
Yeah, Calliope Reaper Jones.
Okay.
That's the name of the series by Amber Benson.
Okay, so keep that in mind, and we might be talking about that pretty soon too. But in the meantime, yeah, definitely give us any kind of topic suggestions, book recommendations, or anything else you'd like to tell us. We would be happy to hear your thoughts. You can send us an email. We are bibliophiles.podcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at BibAnonPodcast. We are also on, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Goodreads. We're all over the place.
Yeah, we're everywhere.
There's lots of places you can find us, and get in touch with us. So you can also always leave us comments at our official website, www.bibliophiles-anonymous.com. So we will figure out something to talk about next week, and we will see you then.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye.